Hang on a second. We're just sort of getting set up right now. So we're gonna start at 4 o'clock. So anyhow, let me see. Looks like, wow, got about 12 people looking right now. Why don't you say hello and introduce yourself? Hello. Hello. I know you're there. There you are. Hi, Clyde.
Hello, or should I say bonsoir?
Bonsoir. All beret with no croissants. So we're all set. Oh yeah, no, that's your the really clear one, right? Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that's the A11. That's A11, and even the stretch brand is contemporary. The spring brand was available for pilots to put over their flight suits.
Cool.
And a bomber, and also easy to flip off. You can see the Type A11, Boulevard 1943.
Dale Evans?
A11.
Oh, A11. I thought you said Dale Evans. You know, what, you have the Gabby Hayes model too?
Nice. Okay.
Okay. Let me show you. This is my Maurice Lacroix.
Parmigiani? No.
I'm sorry?
Parmigiani Fleurier?
No,
or
no.
your Moser?
No, this is my Maurice Lacroix that I just got. And
okay, right.
Yeah, this has one of the best deployant clasp that I have. I've got things that are a lot more expensive than this, but this is a nice. I like the deployment cast. You can see there's a movement that I was going after. This is at criminy, Jaquet. I think it's 736, and I'm pretty sure that this was what happened was that Jaquet was what they called an assembler, and he would buy iboshes from ETA and different places, and then he'd put them together in watches and then sell those to different companies. And one of the companies that bought it from him was Maurice Lacroix, but also, I know I'm going to say this one wrong, Boom et Mercier. They sold a lot to
Bill,
them.
I'm in Oklahoma. Do you think I would know either way? I mean, we barely talk English.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so this is one of those watches that they're very inexpensive, and but they're great. This has got a good heft to it too. Anyhow, I thought we're waiting, and this is my other one. Go ahead.
Your Mosher.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess we're live.
What?
I guess we're live.
Oh, are we? Did somebody say that?
Yeah, it says live on the corner of the screen. We are totally live right now.
Oh, really?
You started.
Okay. Well, that's my fault.
Anyway, no, that's all right. Welcome to Watch Art Sci. Moderating the call, of course, hosting is Bill Sanders. And today he's discussing with me, Clive Watch Wrangler, about is retained value the end-all and be-all for beginning collectors in the field of horology. Bill, go ahead and start us off.
Okay. Well, for those who know me via video, it's not one of the criteria that I consider to be very important. Okay. The very first watch I got as a sort of a starting to look at collection was a Patek Philippe Calatrava. And I'm sure that I could probably get as much as I paid for it. I got a good buy on it. I went down and got a new Patek Philippe strap. I got a new buckle for it. I even got, and this is something a lot of people don't do, is that they don't pay attention to some of the details. And one of the details with a gold watch is to have gold spring bars, because if you don't have gold spring bars, what will happen with steel spring bars that are stronger than gold? I mean, they're I don't know if stronger is the right word, but they're more solid than gold, and so they'll eat a hole into a gold lug. And so I went to New York, and they have a great Patek Philippe service center there. And I think it was like $165 for 2 spring bars. Okay. So I got this thing, and then people started telling me, they say, well, no, you shouldn't wear that watch anywhere. That thing is a little too delicate for, just sort of banging around in. And so I've been very careful about it. And the result is that it spends a lot of time looking very nice in my case. So, and as far as the movement is concerned, it's a manual movement. I like that and everything. But I mean, what good is a watch that's going to sit in your case? And now if you wear a watch all the time, I mean, let's say you go out and get a Rolex, and you wear your Rolex day in and day out, Okay.
Well, especially so if you're getting a present, because then you would be wearing your day in and day out.
Indeed. Yeah, what I do, this is how I wear my watches. I wear them a lot, and for hanging around the house, and my wife says do this or do that, I'll put an inexpensive strap on it. And the reason I said that the other day, and someone said, "Oh, how can you do that? You have this expensive watch, and you should put a really good, leave the expensive band on it." Well, the problem with doing that is that every time you undo this and redo it, it's working at it's working at if you have like a $400 or $500 gator strap, and rather than get some for one that looks nice, $20 online. Works out just fine. You don't worry about it when it wears out. But then when you go to something really nice, you put on your good strap, it looks great. And of course, this is NATO strap. Okay, here's my story about this particular watch.
Also, with the spring strap, you can sit in the back of the class and launch spitballs at people in the front.
You can do that. Um, yeah. Okay. This was going back and forth before. Now it just. What are you looking at on your end right now? Do you see a big screen of yourself?
No, I see a big screen of a guy in a beret, and then me, I'm in the lower right hand corner, kind of
Okay.
like Alice on the Brady Bunch on the introduction of the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's what I'm looking at too. Except it's me in the lower corner. I wasn't sure. 'Cause last time it seemed that we'd be going back and forth when we were. If I were talking, it would one or the other would come up. Okay, where are we? Well, I'm going to wait till 4 o'clock. But this is just some of the little things. Now, is resale value important at all? If I were a flipper, yeah, that would be the main thing. In other words, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to have this watch for a couple months or maybe a year or so, and then I want to trade it for another one. Then I'd be concerned about that. But I'm not concerned about that. Have I traded in watches and hoped to get a better return on it because they didn't have a high resale value? Sure. I've gotten less, but not that much less. I did an analysis, I don't know, a year or so ago on Rolexes. And this was using one place, and that's who's the guy that sells all those Rolexes?
Bob's Watches.
I'm sorry?
Bob's Watches.
That's it. Bob's Watches. I went to Bob's Watches and I looked at all of the buy sell for Rolexes and different types of Rolexes. And there was about a 25% difference. In other words, and again, there's a big difference between selling them to some place like Bob's and selling them to online or some other place. But the resale values, if you went through Bob's, was about 25%. In other words, if you bought one new, and then you turned around and sold it, you'd lose about 25%. On the ones that I had, it was closer to 30 to 40%. And well, not quite 40, but right around in there. It wasn't as good. But I had a watch that I liked, but then there was one when I got my wife's watch, I lost my Vacheron Constantin overseas. And that particular model, though, had a Girard-Perregaux movement. So
Where did you lose?
I'm sorry.
So where overseas did you lose your Vacheron Constantin?
No, it was the name. It was a Vacheron Constantin overseas. That was the name of the model. It was the overseas model. Yeah, it's sort of like a Royal Oak or a Nautilus, and Vacheron Constantin was called the overseas. And I had the first model, and the first model that they came out with had a Girard-Perregaux movement in it that they fixed up quite a bit. But then when I went to trade it in, to help pay for my wife's anniversary gift, I got about two-thirds, maybe a little more than two-thirds of what I paid for it. So yeah, that can matter. But the thing was, when I bought it, I wasn't planning on selling it. And you might say, well, you should concern yourself with that. Okay, it's almost, we got 2 more minutes before I want to start too much. Tell me what beside, now you were talking, that A11 that you had?
Yes.
What did they put inside of those? What movements?
Okay. A11 is a military specification. In other words, the War Department, as we called it back then, because the government was slightly more honest than it is today. So they just said, we're going to make war. We're the War Department. We are totally the War Department.
Yeah, I get
it. Wasn't the Peace Department. The Peace Corps is completely separate. But anyway, so they came up with a specification for a precision timepiece to be used by military personnel in airplanes. primarily fighter. I think, and this is like observation or bombers. No, I think fighter pilots had bigger ones. But the A11, it just said it's going to be this big. It's going to have manually wound. It's going to have a hacking. It has to have hacking on it, and black dial, and pretty much no illumination on it. So, as long as it met those specifications, and 30 millimeters, as long as watch companies in 4 or 5, Bulova, Hamilton, Elgin, just to name a few,
and Waltham
came up with them. Waltham, yes, thank you. Now, what I kind of like about this one, why my one is a little bit more special than the rest, is for some reason, well, these were like primarily plated, so because of wartime shortages, they'd come up with bronze cases and they'd plate them with chromium or something, a similar metal, over the base. But for some reason, in 1943, Bulova came out with silver cases instead of being plated. So they
were made of silver?
Yes, this case is made of silver.
That?
It really is.
Really neat. Yeah. Now, see that to me, Clyde, it gets into what we're going to be talking about. Is that knowing that, if looking at it, I can't tell the difference between white gold, stainless steel, platinum, and silver. They all look the same to me, so I'd be perfectly happy with any one of them. And like this one's white gold, but I can't tell what's the difference.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, and the back is stainless steel because that was produced actually by the War Department and had to have the exact specifications.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. Type A11, specification number 94-27834, serial number, part number AKCSH, order number Bulova, and then Bulova Watch Company. The nice thing is that this is actually a contemporaneous bracelet. I could actually go on eBay and find one of these and still have the World War II. They're also tough watches.
Good thing.
Yeah. Now, the Bulova, I have to go and look at specifics, but was a Swiss movement made by Bulova under contract in the United States. And back then, it wasn't terribly, terribly common for watches to have hacking movements.
Okay. You know what another name for hacking is? Second stop. What? A second stop. There were some watches I was looking at, and this guy was going on about it, that it had a Unitas movement in it, and he added a second stop. I didn't know what a second stop was. And so I read about it, and it's another word for hacking. So I like second stop better because hacking, with my background, hacking has a total different kind of implication. Okay.
So by the way, the A11 is produced for the U.S. Army Air Corps, the Royal Air Force, the Royal Canadian Air Force, and under lead lease to the Soviet Air Force for their pilots.
Oh, cool. I didn't know about the Soviets.
Soviet, yep. So if you live in Europe and you don't have to speak German, you're welcome. Okay. It's literally known as the watch that won World War II.
All right. Well, now let's talk about for beginners, and I'll start off and talking about why it's important to know about who makes your watch, okay, and what goes into your watchmaking. Now, this is my H. Moser, and I don't know. I think it started off life. It was just from 2004. The time I got it last year, it was still brand new. It was condition 0. They were having a very hard time selling these. And the other thing about it, I learned after I got it, was that the reason I got it was that it has something called double hairspring. The name of the watch is the Henry double hairspring. That's a terrible name, but that's the way it goes. Okay, so so I got it for, I think it was around 8 or so, something like that. It was a heck of a good buy, white gold, and they were out there. I saw several of them. I don't see it anymore. There's like this one place I had 3 or 4 of them is down to one, I think now. Okay, now why is this? Here's a watch that doesn't keep its value, but it's something in it that is extremely important, and that's, what does the double hairspring do? Well, it keeps the I'll call it the on or what is it called? I want to say the arbor, but it's not the arbor. The arbor is in the middle of the barrel. It's the uh, your hairsprings are on a pole, and the problem is that when the hairspring just goes in one direction, the pole seems to get off center somewhat. And by having double hairsprings, it's like 2 props on an airplane, keeps it nice and even. Okay. Now, this is something that a lot of people say, well, okay, that's sort of interesting. And it's I found out that they're not making this anymore, and then they were going to put it in another model, and then I found out that they weren't putting it in this other model, which is also this squarish shape. It's sort of shaped like an apple model. The reason for it was that it's terribly expensive to create these double hairsprings, and so they're only making 20 a year, and they're charging $31,000. And
Right.
so it the sort of the moral to, oh, what's going on here? Oh, wow, how did you do that? That's
I'm just
great.
reading. Go ahead.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. Anyway, so
Oh,
yeah.
by the way, Bill, if you click on your screen, the bunch of icons will come up from the far left. The first one will be text chat, so I can send you messages.
Oh, okay.
The second one is screen share. So that way, if you want to pull something up on your computer, you can share it to everybody else. So
okay.
sorry, I didn't realize I was doing the screen share when I pulled up the H. Moser Son double hairscreen escapement.
All right. Well, that's
God damn, they are warning sons of bitches on this land.
yeah, well, here's the moral to the story. Okay. The double hairspring was put together by Precision Engineering. That's the name of the company that did it. Okay, and so you're saying, wait a minute, well, isn't the in-house the way to go? Well, the thing of it is that Moser also owns Precision Engineering. Precision Engineering is simply the name of the people who do their movements. So for whatever reason, they have it organized that way. Same is true with Beauvais. Beauvais has Beauvais, and then they have another part of it called Demier. Now, what I'm saying is that if you find out what's in your watch, and you find out that it's a good thing, and you find out about how they manufacture the watch and the quality of the manufacture, you end up with a very, very good watch. Whether it's going to have resale value or not, it's going to have horological value. And that's a lot of people say, yeah, well, what if I want to trade it in? If you want to trade it in and you haven't paid too much for it, you'll probably get back what you spent on it on one of these. I mean, if I'd gone and bought a new one for $29,000, I'm not going to get my $29,000 back unless something happened. The other one that I simply wanted because it was sort of cool was my FP Journe resonance. And that thing went from around the high 20s all the way up to 55,000. And you don't have to do a thing. So these things, but I have no intention of selling it. So it doesn't really matter to me. I like having a resonance watch. I think it's a cool thing to have. It works on magic, I think. So that's why I like it. All right. So anyway, so that's that was what I wanted to, at least I would say to any kind of beginner, is that, hey, learn as much as you can about your watch. And if it has I mean, if you have a huge price drop in it after you buy it, wait until there's a price drop. And there's two kinds of price drops. One is pre-owned, and the other one that I like is that it's after a few years, they're just not moving these watches, and so they have to send them to places like Joma Shop or Shop Worn or one of the other secondary markets. And there you can pick them up for a brand new one for a fraction of what they cost new. I got this for about a third of what it, and it's brand new, and yet it cost me about a third of what a brand new one would cost. Now it's from 2004. I got it in 2016, so that it was 8 years old, but never sold, never used. And so that was my approach: is you find out everything about it. Now, you want to talk about resale value?
Well, and you have to keep. And you have to
no. Wait. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that because I know you weren't going to say that. You want to talk about resale value as one of the things that you have to pay attention to.
Well, I was going to say you have to keep in mind, like as Bill was talking about, sometimes watch companies can't sell watches for the MSRP through their boutiques or online stores. Then they have to wait and sell them for a discount to me and Bill. We're what's known as the gray market.
In more ways than one. Go ahead. All right. Go ahead, Clyde.
Sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off there. Well, but the thing is, okay, let's look at, number one, a couple other things. Now, I've given you a hard time about the gray enough. The blue dot on your shirt. Oh, now that identifies you as the member of the Illuminati, right?
Yes. Okay. Not only other Illuminati know that, so.
Gotcha. Well, I had an uncle that was kicked out at the last minute. Now,
was that the one who tied his wife to the tree?
No, he was tied to the tree. No, he is definitely not.
A different one.
Now, that true story. People, I know. I know. Now, when you started out, like I said, it's not like you've been collecting watches for years and years. How long have you been in the hobby seriously?
10 years.
Okay.
About.
And when you started out 10 years ago, what was the first watch you got, and what were you looking for at the time?
I didn't know. I wanted an automatic watch, and I ended up with Raymond Weil, which had an ETA in it, and I didn't know an ETA from a baseball bat. So it was. So I wore it. One of the things, it came with a rubber strap, and I thought, well, that's stupid. I had no idea what a rubber strap was for. So I went down to a watch store and bought a good, I think I got either leather or gator strap for it, and thought I was a fancy guy with my Raymond Weil. Now, a few years later,
well, let's back up. Let's back. What attracted you to Raymond Weil just coming in the hobby? Where did you find it? What did you do before you bought it? Were you just walking along the mall, looked over in there, and said that watch looks cool, or were you doing research?
No, I was. I didn't. I was simply looking for an automatic watch. I had a friend of mine years ago gave me this really beautiful Rado, and it was a quartz watch, and it was gold and titanium. The interesting stuff that Rado still does, I guess. And but I wanted something that didn't have a battery in it, so I got I went to, what was it, overstock.com, and got it. Now, this was a something that at the time I was really busy with a lot of other stuff, and so I wasn't as focused on the hobby as I am now, and have been for the last several years.
Mhm.
But that was where I started.
Now, Bill, a couple of quick things. Number one, everyone is saying, I've been trying to keep a track of the live stream comments to the right because I'm kind of force a habit with the other channel, but everyone's saying they can't see you.
Okay.
Okay, guys, if you can.
Oh, okay. Can they see me now?
I don't know, guys. If you can see Bill now, type 1.
Yeah. Okay, I think I know what it was.
Okay.
Okay, it's working now?
Yes. You can keep your pin.
Okay. Here's what happened. Something before. Oh, maybe it was my other computer. I had it on my iMac before, and when I was talking, my picture would come up, and when you talked, yours would come up. And so what I'll do now, I'll do it manually. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, all right. So then what I can't see any chat things. Is anybody beside you written anything?
No, I don't know if they can even read that chat. No, there's also, let me go into that real quick. Well, take a second. Kat, there are thoughts. We'll go in the live stream comments. Abdul Rahman, hi, Bill. Ian Enescu, hi, Bill. Thomas Cook, hello. Kevin Main, hello. William Minter, testing. Jay Sykes, we say howdy here, says howdy.
Oh, boy. This is weird. I tell you, last time, like I said, last time I did it on my other computer, and I wanted to be sure I used Chrome this time instead of Safari, because Google and Chrome go together. Okay, well, maybe that had something to do with it.
Now, Rasher Bilbo is saying hi. No, you did his watch collection last weekend, right?
I'm sorry?
Rasher? Didn't you do Rasher's watch collection review last weekend? Rasher. Didn't you do a watch collection for Rasher Bilbo last weekend?
Me?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Maybe I did.
Okay.
What was the question?
No, he was just saying hello, but I recognized you doing he had a really, really nice collection. I mean, just out of the park collection. Herman, and that was a good review, by the way.
Now I got to bring up all the watches I was showing before. This is the one that I got. I was talking about with a double hairspring, and that was the reason I got it, was because of that. Like you said, when I began, I didn't know anything, like most other people. This one, Maurice Lacroix, is one that there was a certain point when I learned a lot about watches and the value of the brand and so forth, that would have never got this. But this turns out to be a very interesting watch, and it has this tonneau shaped movement in it, and it was part of that. Okay, now that I've been able to show the watches I wanted to show, I'm going to put you back on the main part. Okay, there you are.
I was going to say, now the Maurice Lacroix, I've heard of it. I'm familiar with it. It's like Girard-Perregaux. It's just ones you hear reference to, but it's just like nothing really. So the Maurice Lacroix, how much you bought that gray market or secondhand?
I got it. No, it was secondhand.
And if you don't mind me asking, what was the price that you paid for it?
Well, the reason I don't want to talk about that, let me explain that. We're all in sort of a situation. Let's say that at some point I want to sell it. I'm going to say, oh, hey, yeah, I paid a whole lot for this. It was a lot less than the usual what I spend for something like this. Okay.
Gotcha. Let me rephrase the question then. What is the MSRP on the watch?
I think it's about $6,000. It's not like crazy expensive.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, but the thing of it is that the watch itself is much better than I thought. This is the thing. Until just a few years ago, Maurice Lacroix had used ETA, Solita, the other not its own movements. And a few years ago, they started doing it. This one the movement used in this one was used by, when I started looking for, I couldn't believe how many different companies had that. RGM had it in a $7,900 watch, and a beautiful watch too, by the way, that RGM has this in. But then I found out, like Baume and Mercier and all of these other companies, Dunhill. I don't know how many of you ever heard of Dunhill watches, but they had them.
I
And
used to smoke them in college.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so it's the kind of thing that's to me is the most fun about watch collection, is that I'm learning about here is this movement. I don't know if there's see, RGM said he had 10 watches that he had this movement for, and he's already sold 6 of them. And so I've been trying to get, for the last several days, to get a hold of Switzerland and try to find the guy who, what was his name? Jean-Pierre Jadot. I'm trying to get a hold of him. And there's this little company that hasn't come up called I think it's called Jadot and Baume, or it's Baume and Jadot, one of the two. And I even found, on Google, I found out where their office is, and it's a little bitty place. Now here's a guy who made this, who went to prison for stealing all of these gold cases from Miranda, and he and this other guy from Ulysse Nardin, and I think one of the people inside of Miranda, and they were going to use the Jadot SA, which is the name of the company. They were going to use those facilities to make phony Rolexes. And so this guy's a real character, and he just got out of he had to go to jail, I think, for 4.5 years and pays 750,000 Swiss francs in fines. But so
were they all Mirandized?
I'm sorry?
Were they all Mirandized?
God. Yeah, that's what they were. They Mirandized, all right. But what I'm saying, Clyde, is that what you have is that watch collection is the extent to which it's about resale value. I don't think you're getting much of value out of the watch itself. There are all kinds of things. Like I say, I've got this Patek Philippe with great resale value, but it's just in my case most of the time. And what watches that? Here's another. Here's a Parmigiani, and this watch, or this brand, again, is one of those watches that has terrible resale value right now, except last year they won 2 Grand Prix awards, and now they're not as easy to find, and the prices aren't as dropping as fast. See, it's like, from a collector's point of view, you want to see them drop like a rock so you can get your mitts on them at a good price. Buying a Rolex, my own conclusion came, if I ever get a Rolex, and I may someday, I'm going to go buy a brand new one from an AD. Because okay, so give me some advice on that.
Okay, you're talking about a Datejust 41, right?
Yeah.
Datejust are not the most popular ones. They're great watches, and the Datejust 41 as opposed to the Datejust 42. I mean, sorry, the Datejust 2. The Datejust, if it's 41, it has the new movement in it. It's a great movement.
Yes.
However, they always have a very slow depreciation factor in them.
That's, to me, that's the greatest news that a collector can have. If you
buy used, if you buy new, yeah. So yeah, I would not. No, I would wait. I'd go secondhand. I'd find someone that had a Datejust, is wanting to flip into a sports model, meet them in an AD or a watchsmith, have it authenticated, and pick it up for a discount.
Okay. I know somebody who can do that. He was a former judge on the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève, and just very. In fact, I'm going to go see him next week, and I got some questions to ask. You know, one of the interesting things, and it's just a little off the topic for a second, but maybe not so much. You know, all of these like the Grand Seiko High Beat, and there were some other ones that they're talking about that, and I'm trying to think who else. I think, I don't know who else came out with. I think Zenith did, maybe. They came out with a High Beat. I don't know if Rolex does. Rolexes are pretty much 4 hertz from morning till night. If there are other frequencies, that's okay. But you know, when you look around, 4 hertz are 28,800 vibrations per hour. Yeah, that's pretty much the standard. And and then when you look at the Grand Seiko, they have the High Beat, and it's like super accurate and so forth. And so I was looking at some of these exceptional, really exceptional technologies like FP Journe and H. Moser, and they're all slower. And so I I thought, well, you know, these are the ones that I have. Maybe it's just a flukes. And so then I went and looked at Fourier, who else? Terry Voot and Lonan. All of these guys who are at the tip top, and Roger Smith, they all have these below 4 hertz movement, and some significantly so. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing I hope to find out about when I go visit my friend the Wizard, and find out why is that. And that's so cool, because the common assumption is, well, I want to get a higher beat. Well, yeah, you can do that, and like, you know, Grand Seiko High Beat, those are very accurate watches. But I'll knock it out of its socks with a $10 quartz. So, you know, maybe they're looking at something else.
Oh, by the way, now if you'll notice, there's a little tab here on the side of the iPhone. If you take that and flip it down to where it shows red on the side, then the iPhone is on silent mode and quits binging every time you get a text message.
Oh, okay. I got mine all wrapped up in a OtterBox, but that's good to know. Well, what version is that?
It's the 10. The camera mount is vertical rather than horizontal.
Yeah, the 10 is really good. My son's got a 10, and the camera in the 10 is fantastic.
What's actually really nice about it, and they really you almost get the size screen of the Plus. You almost get the size screen of the Plus in like one-handed form, which is nice.
You do. I got the great big one. And,
the Plus.
I don't know what it's called. This great big one, and I have one of my relatives got a 10 and was showing it to me, and the screen size the same. Unbelievable. Really a great phone, but I don't know. I'll run down and buy one of these and then worry about, you know, the new prices on the 10. That's crazy.
Oh, it is. Now, Bill and Forbin Classes was referring to the earlier video where you were referring to the Rolex Datejust 41 vis-a-vis the Parmigiani Kalpa XL. But now, And I thought that was a good video. And of course, if you're watching it now, you obviously need, when we're done, to go check it out, and the rest all of other Bill's work. Now, you think now I think you've been on this for a while. Now, I think your assumption is that some designs, especially the higher, since they come from higher tier watch manufacturers, if they're as accurate with a lower kph, then obviously it might be a better design or put together better or something.
One of the things that H. Moser seems to be bragging about a lot is that they talk about Moser teeth. And the Moser teeth would be the teeth in the different gears that have a certain type of precision to them that cost more to manufacture. I don't know though. The other reason may be simply don't have to take them into service as much. They don't go south as often because they're at a lower beat. But these are only 2.5 hertz. That's 1,800 vibrations per hour. You compare that with 24,000. That's 18,000. You compare that with 24,000. It's almost half. I mean, when you look at 2.5 hertz versus 4 hertz. So, and this too, by the way, this was really, this was another thing that I found, another reason I like this particular watch with the particular movement. It also runs at 3 hertz. So, that's what these guys are, and it keeps great time. That's the other part of it. But what I think it was, I think that Jacques S.A. took these parts. He bought a bunch of parts, iBoches from ETA, and redesigned the movement case because he had to have the different plates and everything to make it in the Tourneau shape, and moved everything around. But then I think he also, I mean, when you
sort of like fine-tuning an engine, taking a stock engine and working on it and fine-tuning it and get a better performance out of essentially a stock one. So something along those lines.
Oh yeah, and it's sort of a radical way though, because if you take a round movement and then you move everything around into a Tourneau shape movement, you've got to move things where they weren't before. And so you have to move them around somehow, and he did that, and it was that particular movement was picked up by 5 or 6 different watch companies that I know of, and he was pretty popular, but I guess he also got a little greedy when he went and got in cahoots with those other guys. I don't, you never know what's going on. He could have been.
You mean before he got Mirandized?
Yes, before before they stole the cases from Miranda. But I think what happened was that it was, this involved a something from Miranda. I mean, in other words, there was an inside job, and somebody helped them do that.
Now, Bill Cosgrave in the live stream comments has a good question. Have you thought about getting with a mechanical engineer who understands escapements and can discuss with you the pros and cons of different escapement designs?
I tell you, I read a thing by a mechanical engineer. It was in a scientific journal, not a watch journal. It was a British engineering journal. And what I found, and this is because I love engineers, is that the guy really wasn't on top of what was going on in a watch as some of the watchmakers that I see. Now the watchmakers they're looking at a very special kind of mechanical engineering. And given my background and expectations, I figured, well, a mechanical engineer is going to tell you the very best. There's something else too that I found out among watchmakers. Not that, again, you're talking about people who are, doing this for a living, And a lot of watchmakers, you talk to them and you say, well, what movement is the best? And they'll say ETA without batting an eye. And the reason for that is they can get the parts for ETA. They know how to fix them, and it's not a problem. You go in there with a double hairspring, and they're going to look at you like you're nuts. So,
Well, it's like getting a GM engine that they've cranked out thousands and thousands. Everyone has the parts for it. Everyone knows how to work on it. And you might get better performance out of a Ferrari engine with a lot of exotic technology, or a Mercedes Benz, where they over-engineered the crap out of it. But I think, well, they have. The Germans are great about over-engineering stuff.
I know. Go ahead.
Yeah. But in a lot of ways, I mean, it seems like people really trash talk ETA, but if you're looking from the standpoint of maintenance and repair, I actually think ETA has a lot to go good with it. I mean, it has a lot of good things going for it. And there's different styles, there's different grades of ETA. It's not like someone has to have to take an ETA movement and just slap it in a box and not touch it and just tighten it down on the case. There's different grades of ETA, and people can really, I mean, like Hublot, for instance. Everyone hates Hublot, but one of the things I understood is they put a lot of work and effort into the ETA movements in their early designs. And even movement nerds said, yeah, the Hublots were good ETA, had really good ETA movements.
There's
and
about
Unitod.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The Thomas Ninkritz, Thomas Ninkritz movement.
Yeah.
And again, though, as you pointed out, and I have been looking at them, it's just if the face, I don't like the aesthetics of it. I mean, this is one of the Unitod's movements they've been made forever. They used to be pocket watch movements, and they have really finally gone over them. They have finally decorated
That's
them.
What this is. This is the same movement, but it was taken, and it was taken from the round shape that Ninkritz has in all of his watches, and made into a tonneau shape. And
right.
And that was also where I got that was where I learned that the second stop was the same as hacking in Thomas Ninkritz stuff.
But when you think about it, I mean, the work on the movement kind of signifies, or it symbolizes, that someone with talent and skill went into the movement, redid it, took time, and not just to make it pretty, but simply put the time and the effort in to make it run properly, to regulate it.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, this is what Ninkritz did too, is that he put in a different. There are two types of regulators. One regulator is the one where all of the hands are on separate spindles, and the other type of regulator is the regulator that you for your watch. I mean, for the that's on top of the balance wheel.
Right.
And you make it faster or slower. Okay. Well, he put in, I think it was he took out the original one and put in a swan's neck regulator into that. And, I think that is a better example of, sort of taking a Chevy block and fixing it up than
super tuning it.
I'm sorry?
Super tuning a conventional engine.
Yeah, I think also too is that the ETAs have when you look at the 4 levels that they have, it's the number of adjustments that they made. It's simply a matter, their time graphers are like 1,000 times better than what we buy, especially the one I've got. And they're very fine-tuned. And so when you're talking about the 6 different positions for a watch to be tested on, really all they're doing is they're simply adding more of those. And if you look at a good watch, I mean, a really good watch, you look at the back of them, and they'll say, back here, they'll say adjusted to 6 positions. Whereas with ETA, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what's going to be in there.
Yeah, well, you never can, because they're not very forthcoming. They're not very transparent. But I think you could make the same argument. Can't you make the same argument with in-house movements?
You could. You really could. Yeah. The guys that I know that Frederick Constant, who makes beautiful watches. I mean, I was looking at some, but I noticed that I don't even know if they've gotten to first base on the Grand Prix awards. And one of the big things there is that they always look at the movement and what's inside of it. And they may not have liked what they saw. And so that the way they did, I don't know how many movements, how many different movements that Frederick Constant really has, but it's not a lot. So, well, listen.
In a lot of ways,
oh, go ahead.
The whole in-house versus out. I mean, in-house versus outhouse.
Okay, I agree with that, but I mean, is that this is
I think
if you find one with what are the innovations that they have? This is why last week I was talking about when I talk about the date just, I was talking about, wow, look what they did with the escapement, look what they did with the hairspring. And I think, if you start looking at those kinds of things, not only do you learn more about watches, I think it's more fun as a watch collector.
So someone starting out, what would you suggest they start with? Is Rolex mandatory to start off with?
No.
Okay.
What I would do is not what I did. I would not go out and buy a Raymond Weil because it was a good deal somewhere. And actually, it's an old Raymond Weil. Here it is. I use it this is for my yard work. But I put it on a James Bond strap. So
okay, let's go through this. Hypothetical question. You went back in time 10 years and talked to Bill Sanders before walking to the mall or to the jewelers, and you stopped him before buying the Raymond Weil. And once he got over the culture shock about meeting himself 10 years in the future, and asking about the Bray and the blue pin, once you got past all that, what would you suggested to Bill Sanders 10 years ago?
Okay. I would say take at least 6 months and learn everything you can about watches. Learn about their movements, learn about how they're made, and that's what I would suggest.
What resources would Bill Sanders from 2008 have? Well, what resources would Bill Sanders have today to learn about these things?
10 years ago, they didn't have
at
least one of them, and that's
why I stopped myself and revised the question. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Well, Ryan Schmidt's book, the Wristwatch Handbook, I think is a great way to get started. It doesn't have much about which watch you should buy, but it does tell you about how they work. The other kinds of thing, it's really hard. I mean, you have such set attitudes. People get really, they get all Nazi about their brand of watch.
That's a little offensive of a term to use. That's a little bit of an offensive term to use.
Oh, okay. What would be better?
National Socialist
Socialist
Workers Party, obviously.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, anyway, they have. I'll say they become loud and unreasonable about their own brand. Okay. So unfortunately, it's hard to find a source that somebody is. I don't know. You have to look for. To me, is looking for irony. In other words, looking for incongruities. There's something that detectives use called procedure by incongruity, and that's where something isn't quite together. And then you look for the fissures, and what I call price fissures, is where you have an imbalance where you really have a very high price and the watch isn't so good, the other fissure is one we're all looking for, and this is like a really good watch at a good price. And I found that in Parmigiani. I found it in Moser. There are other kinds of watches that you'll find that in, but you have to know something about the watch before you do that. I think that what you said about Rolexes is important. The fissure I see in Rolex, from based on what you said, hey, Datejusts aren't popular. Get a Datejust. All right, that was, find out what you want. I didn't realize that. I was looking around at the watches, and I looked at that movement in a Datejust. I said, hey, that's pretty neat. You told me that, well, they did that because they were having a hard time selling them. I wonder how much effect that would have.
I don't think that's just Rolex. I think that's, well, okay. And one of the problems, I think, is smoke and mirrors and marketing doublespeak just from the Swiss watch industry as a whole. But one of the things that, and Rolex isn't the only brand that does this, but like, for instance, the new movement in the new, was it Baumeister?
By whom?
Baum, like Baum and Mercier. It's a Baumeister.
Oh, yeah. Baum and Mercier, right.
No,
yeah, Baumatic.
Baumatic, okay.
Yeah.
Baumeister, Baummister, Baumatic, okay. But sure. But one of the things is that Richemont came up with a really, really good movement in-house, and they dropped it in the Baumatic first because they wanted to kind of shore up and improve sales on that model.
This is Richemont doing that.
Right.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I had read that, and it's that's an interesting thing. If this may sound, I'm getting over petty about things, but have you noticed how small that movement is in relationship to the rest of the watch?
Yeah.
Now, usually what that means, like I said, I may be getting overly petty, but the reason for doing that is so they can use it in different size models. If they have a great big movement that fills up the watch like this, they're going to, boom. See how that totally fills the case? In fact, it even goes over it a little.
Right.
This is the kind of stuff that I look for. There's a Patek Philippe Gondolo that has the same kind of filled up. If you look, I tell you a deal I think that's coming along, Clive.
The Longines?
Yes, that's one. But the other one is this Tissot that's coming out.
That's why I said yes.
Yeah, the automatic. Man, I'll tell you, that thing it's got an ETA Unitas 6498 or 97, one of the two, and for $995 or whatever it is, brand new, is like, okay, well, now that's an interesting watch, and to me it's an honest watch. That's more than anything else that I want in a watch, is for the vendor to be honest about it. That's one thing. Again, going back to being starting off, IWC makes some really good watches, some really good movements, and then they have all these ETAs in them in other ones, and they don't tell you that they're an ETA. Cartier does the same thing. You got a Cartier, and maybe they'll have the Cartier movement in it, or maybe they'll have an ETA movement. You never know, or a Sellita movement. Drives me crazy.
Okay,
Tiffany,
now here's a good question by Forbin Clauses. And Forbin's, he's on the forums. He's a really sharp cookie. If a watch uses an ETA, how in heck can you justify a $5,000 price or more in a steel case? The cost of the parts doesn't add up to the MSRP of the watch, in his opinion.
I'm with you. I agree. How can you do that? How do you justify it? Okay. Because basically you're taking a hunk of steel, you're slapping in a movement that you didn't make, and then you want to charge a lot of money for it. Yeah, I agree with I agree with that 100%.
Well, there is somebody else with another channel There's someone else with another channel on YouTube, and I'm not going to say who he is, but he has a Tag Heuer Monaco, and literally, and so it's the Steve McQueen, the Le Mans. So it's like, oh, that's a cool watch. It's nice and it's square and it's got everything on the left-hand side like the original. And the original one had one of the original automatic chronograph movements in it. But this reissue has a Solita movement with a chronograph module on top of it, and it's also $5,000. I mean, the MSRP on it is $5,000.
Well, you know, the charging of a lot of money. Well, this is why I think it's important to know what's in your watch. I think it's vitally important. You know, it's not that ETA is bad. I never ever said ETA was bad. In fact, I think this Jacquet started life as an ETA Bosch. It's not that. It's two things. One, telling you what it is. It's an ETA. It's a Solita. It's a Soprod, whatever. Just tell us. That's all. To me, that's fraud. And a lot of people say, "Oh, that's not fraud." And you're a lawyer, so you have a legal definition. I've got a watch collector's definition, which I think is important.
I would say fraud, but I would say deceptive.
What's the difference? I mean, what you're doing is you're putting a name up there. Okay, deceptive. You want to call it deceptive. I call it fraud.
Deceptive is not actionable. Calling something fraud is actionable. Hint, yeah. Hint, hint.
Okay, all right.
You call something deceptive if you don't want to get sued.
Okay. Well, I didn't mention any brands, so I won't get sued. Right. Well, now, okay. To me, IWC, Cartier, Omega, Tag Heuer, Breitling, all of those have deceptive movements in the sense that they are not identified. Their base is not identified. One of the defenses I think that collectors have is they simply can go to watchbase.com and find out what the base of the movement is. And as often as not, they're going to find an ETA or Solita in there. But all they have to do is say, look, we have this movement. We've got the very best ETA in there. Plus, we did this to it. This is what Thomas Ninkrist did. And his watches are worth every cent that he overcharges for them.
Fair enough. Well, and one of the things I have looked for them. There's only one distributor. I don't find any of those suckers used. That tells me something. No, apparently everyone who has one is not selling it.
You're right. Yeah, that's a good observation. Same is true with trying to find a Hairspring 2 Felix. You're not going to find that. Yeah, the same with the Thomas Ninkrist. You know, I was supposed to get into sort of the elephant's graveyard of Thomas Ninkrist on this visit, but it's not going to happen, unfortunately.
Also, with that last brand, you want to make sure the person, if you want to give one of those as a gift, you want to make sure they don't have any warrants out for them, because you don't want to be accused of harboring a fugitive.
On what kind of watch now?
Harboring.
Oh, Clyde, you're a card. You ought to be dealt with. Anyhow, so listen, I'm way over the half hour that I had promised my wife, and so we better sign off for now. Next time, I tell you, if you can get the other guy that we talked about for next time, that'd be great. Either on your channel or mine.
No, it'd have to be in your channel.
Okay.
Now, guys, we're okay. I'm going to try to protect his anonymity, so I'm going to call him Duty Robson. Guys, a few of you know Duty Robson, so actually not me, but Bill Sanders, actually Dr. Bill Sanders, is issuing an invitation for him to appear on his channel, Watch Art Sci, and discuss alternatives to Rolex and specifically horology brands. So, Duty, if you're listening, you know how to contact him. Thanks.
Note that he knows how to contact Clyde, not me.
Oh, no, he totally can, because he knows where he knows where it is. So I also texted him just now. So
okay,
yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk. We've got some interesting things to discuss after the broadcast ends.
Okay, all right. Thanks. Sorry it took so long, and until next time, we'll see you. Take care.
Thanks for having me, Doctor. I appreciate it.
It's always my pleasure.